Computer. Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Bruce Firestone. I'm talking to Nick Butts here. And Nick, like a lot of the other pivoteers in my pivot course and a lot of people that I talk to, really believes, I think, in having a personal business for life and owning some real estate as a way to take care of yourself and your family for 3 generations. Is that a fair statement, Nick?
Absolutely.
And so what we're going to do, I thought, because Nick has set the agenda, not me, is what I thought we would do is I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to just run through just a few more slides that some of them you've already gone through, Nick, but just because we're recording this, I think it would be useful to everybody, I mean, you, and if you ever have a team around you, get on the same page. And what we're going to discuss today is how Nick might create a business out of something that's very old. It's called scrip, and you'll see what it is in a moment. But is that fair? We'll spend about 15 minutes on that first.
Yeah, sounds great.
Okay. So I'm going to share my screen, and you should be able to see it on the screen. Can you see it okay?
Yep.
So as I said, this is not a new idea. You know, Groupon does a little bit of this with their couponing.
Yep.
And you can see here's this is a form of scrip that goes back, I think, to the 1880s. And this was a lumber mill that wanted to expand. It was in upstate New York, I think, and they wanted to expand, but they didn't have enough money to fund it. So one of the things that they did was they issued this scrip that you could see here. And it's like, Disney dollars is like Canadian Tire money. It's kind of funny money, I guess. And there's a couple of really important things here. So Reynolds Brothers wanted to expand their lumber mill. And the way you can see can you see, Nick, that there's these men are sawing a log here?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
so you can see it. And what they did was they issued a lot of this scrip. So instead of paying their employees in US dollars back then, they would pay in $5 bills, so to speak, of their own funny money, scrip. And the very important here that you can only use this scrip in trade. So you could use that $5 at the company store, or you could use that to, say, pay rent if you had a little bunkie that you were paying rent on. So you could redeem it, but only at the company store. You following me?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so that's important because let's say you go into the company store to buy some pancakes and maple syrup and whatever else, eggs, whatever else they were eating back then. The cost presumably for Reynolds Brothers to provide you those groceries might be, say, 40% on the dollar. So their actual cost of goods might be, say, $2. And then there's a little bit of labor, involved in sort of packing the groceries, maybe delivering the groceries back then, stocking the shelves, whatever. So maybe let's assume that their cost, including labor and everything else, is $3. It means when they issue $5 worth of scrip, it doesn't actually cost them $5. But if this thing said, instead of due to the bearer $5 in trade, if it said it was just they would trade you the $5 for $5 US dollars, you can see there's no lift there. Do you understand the economics of it, Nick?
Yep.
So when they pay their laborers $5, so maybe they're being paid $5 a day, just as a number. They were actually paying them $3. So the cost of scrip to the company is actually a negative cost. All right?
Mm-hmm.
Which means they make a profit on it. And because we're both hockey guys, Nick works for the Ottawa Senators, and I'm the founder of the Ottawa Senators. I put this in here because this is how Conn Smythe built Maple Leaf Gardens in Toronto back in the day. In the Great Depression, there was very little cash around. So what Conn Smythe did was he told unemployed iron workers, concrete workers, turners and fitters, general laborers, look, come and work on this building and I'll pay you in Carleton Street Cashbox dollars, if you understand where I'm going on that. Very similar to what Reynolds Brothers did. And so the cost of the building, believe it or not, it was $1.5 million. Can you imagine building Maple Leaf Gardens for $1.5 million?
Nope.
Well, that's what it cost. And they built it in 6 months. Think about that, how good they were to get it done in 6 months. So they built it in 6 months, and he paid part of his labor costs in scrip. Now, if the Maple Leafs and Maple Leaf Gardens had not been successful, that scrip you could have just put it on your wall, right? It would have been worthless. But because it was successful, Conn Smythe was able to redeem it for tickets to the games, or to pay for, hot dogs and beer, So the people who worked on this did get some value for it. All right, so that's scrip. And then here's just, more funny money. I bet you most households in Canada and some in the United States have some CDN Tire money in them, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And Disney does the same thing. They issue a Disney dollar. So, and to buy a Disney dollar costs $1. But when Disney, you can only redeem it at one of the Disney parks, and when you redeem it, presumably the cost of redeeming the dollar at a Disney park doesn't cost Disney $1 either, right?
Mm-hmm.
And interestingly enough, I knew Mike Eisner, who was the CEO of Disney back in the day. He served on the board of directors of the National Hockey League at the same time that I did, and back then he ran the Mighty Ducks of Anaheim. Now just called the Ducks, but they were called the Mighty Ducks after a movie.
Yep.
Okay. So when the new ownership took over, they didn't want, and Disney didn't want them to use the term Mighty Ducks because that's a Disney property. So they're just called the Ducks of Anaheim, but they were originally the Mighty Ducks. He told me back then, that's 30 years ago now, that there is back then there was about 1.2 billion US dollars of Disney dollars out there somewhere floating around, in your granddaughter's dresser, right?
That's crazy.
So,
now, sorry to interrupt you.
Of course, no, please do. That's what this is supposed to be, a conversation.
What's the benefit of someone buying these Disney dollars when they're the same as a US dollar? Why not just bring cash with you to the park instead of buying these Disney
That's
dollars?
a great question. And in fact, I tell all of my friends when they're taking their daughters or sons, their granddaughters, grandsons, when you go to a Disney park, what Disney should do is, as you walk into the park, you should have your hands up. They should have these long vacuum cleaner arms come out, go into your pockets and suck every dollar out of your jeans, because by the time you leave the park, you won't have any cash.
Yeah.
Trust me on that. Everything costs money at the Disney park. Everything. You turn around and it's expensive. A breakfast for one person is $40 US. I mean, just so if you have 5 kids like I do and a wife, and you take 7 people there, every breakfast you're looking at hundreds of dollars. Every time you go on a ride, they want to sell you another bunch of photos for $20 US. So you're just not. So there is no actual reason why you would buy Disney dollars, except that if you take 5 little kids, as I did, to Disney World, they would rather, if they're going to spend some money, they'd rather be spending Disney dollars, than say a US dollar, or for that matter, a Canadian dollar, right? I mean, it's a lot more exciting for a kid. Oh, look, I've got 20 Disney dollars. So we bought them, and you spend them there. But you don't all, kids, they're going to pocket some of those, right? I got to keep this. And so I'll bet you, there's probably 100 million households in the United States that have Disney dollars floating around. We know that's true because back in 1993, they had 1.2 billion US dollars of Disney dollars that hadn't been redeemed, that are out there. Now, I have a question for you, Nick. If you have $1.2 billion worth of Disney dollars out there, is that an asset or a liability?
Well, I would say it's a liability until they use it, right?
Now, you know more about accounting than I did at your age. I said to Mike, Mr. Eisner, I said, Mike, so that's $1.2 billion of cash that you have received, for which you have no cost against it, other than the cost of printing that thing, right?
Yeah.
Which is probably a half a cent or something like that. Maybe it's a couple pennies, I don't know. And so he explained to me, unfortunately, we have to keep that $1.2 billion on the liability side of the Disney balance sheet, because in theory, somebody could show up tomorrow with 1.2 billion Disney dollars that they collected from households all around the United States, in fact, all around the world. They could show up and demand service for that.
Yep.
But to an entrepreneur like me, and maybe an entrepreneur like you, if you had $1.2 billion that people had given you in cash and they never showed up for the services, at least in 30 years they haven't shown up, and that number just keeps going up, by the way, I would look at that as an asset.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, if you had 1.2 billion US dollars in your savings account right now, that would be pretty good.
Not bad.
Even if somebody could come along at some point and say, hey, you know, you've got to cut my hair for that. All right, so you clear on that?
Yep.
And then you know this example. This is an Ottawa example. Tracey Clark bought the original Bridgehead Fair Trade coffee from out of bankruptcy. She, the bankruptcy trustee was asking $650,000, but she paid $35,000 for it. I helped her with that. And, you know, if you don't ask, you don't get. So she bought the assets of Bridgehead for, you know, pennies on the dollar because they couldn't sell it to anybody else. And it's quite a big chain now. But Tracey doesn't like debt. And she's got a bit of an aversion to it. So when she was building this big new facility here that you see here, this is in Westboro, which is a trendy part of Ottawa. This was about a $15 million investment. She built a big new roastery, and of course, it's really the flagship for her 15 or 20 unit store count. And she needed about $3.5 million in equity, and people were willing to invest in her business, but they wanted her to give up, you know, 20, 30, 40% of the business in return for that cash equity. And so I reminded her of the idea of scrip, and she took it and she ran with it, and she created this plant a bean campaign, right? And her denominations were much bigger than I expected. They were like $250, $500, and $1,000 denomination. So it wasn't like go back to the Disney dollar. It wasn't $1, or here we are, Canadian Tire, 10 cents. It was, you know. And I said, Tracey, are people going to buy $1,000, you know, piece of scrip from Bridgehead? And she said, I don't know, maybe. And it turned out she was right. They did, because if you go to Bridgehead once a day every week, you know, I mean, weekdays, you might spend $5 there. Maybe you go 4 days a week. That's $20. So to redeem $1,000 worth of scrip from Bridgehead, if you're spending $20 a week there, is only 50 weeks. And what she did was, I think she gave them either a 10%, I don't remember, 10% or a 20% discount on it. So it meant that you could buy $1,000 or $500 or $250 worth of plant a bean scrip for, let's say, 80 cents on the dollar. It meant you, as the consumer, were making, say, 20% on your money in a year. Now, Nick, what do you get from your bank on $1,000?
Like 1.5%.
Yeah, I think that's right, 1.5%. So what would you rather have? Would you rather have $200, an extra $200 to spend on great coffee and treats a year, or 1.5% on $1,000 is what, $15, right? So
Yep.
What's better, $200 or $15? So people said, geez, I'll buy that. And she sold, I think it was 3.5. In fact, it was so popular she had to stop. You know, I have enough, you know. So there you go. And oh yeah, and so here it is. You know, this was an ad that I clipped out of a magazine where this particular bank, Ally Bank, was proudly announcing that they pay a whole 0.99%. So, you know, 1% would give you $10, where on $1,000, whereas you could get $200 worth of extra coffee and treats if you bought a piece of scrip. But again, for Tracey, her cost of actually doing that is negative, right? Because if she sells you $5 worth of coffee, her cost for doing that is probably no more than $1. maybe it's $1.50, and then she has some other costs undoubtedly. But again, just like Reynolds Brothers, it's probably a negative cost. So imagine if you went to the bank and say, hey, I'd like to borrow $3.5 million. And by the way, you pay me interest. That's what she did. Do you understand the concept?
Yeah. And
the reason I'm explaining it in such detail, Nick, is that if you launch a business to help other businesses, and by the way, Addie Bird, young Atticus Bird, is going to join us around noon. She might be your first customer, okay?
Sounds great.
All right. And we've got a few more minutes. I want to make sure I don't lose the time here. Oh, yeah, we've got lots of time. I want you to really understand the fundamentals of what you're selling. Because, look, this is something I really like. But at the end of the day, if you decide this isn't for me, you just drop this idea and you do something else. Is that understood?
Yep.
But if you like it, I think there's a wonderful business here. That's my opinion. But if you don't share it, if you're not passionate about it, if your head isn't into it, your heart isn't into it, and your instincts aren't aligned, just drop it and do something else. All right? But I think this could be a fantastic business. All right. All right. So when I talk about negative costs, I mean negative perspiration. Right? It means instead of perspiring, somehow you do the reverse. I don't know if it's humanly possible to anti-perspire, but that's kind of what I'm getting at with this. So think about how powerful this is as a tool. It goes back to at least the 1880s. Conn Smythe used it in the 1930s. Tracey Clark did it in the 2000s. Disney has been doing it forever. Canadian Tire is well known for this. But somebody who could systematize it and help small businesses, wow, that would be really something. So negative perspiration. Yeah, try getting this deal, where the bank pays you interest. When I say interest, I don't mean 1.5%, I mean 20%. Not going to happen. All right. Did you see this story about Sean the handyman?
Yeah, I did.
All right. So believe it or not, scrip can work for vertical niches. And if I have your permission at the end of this session that we're doing together, I'd like to introduce you to another young fellow I coach. His name is Matt Thibault. And Matt is a very young man, but very successful. And what he does is he has a niche. He helps contractors, renovators, market their services. Like he's a lead generation machine for them. He's got a wonderful, I think he uses only Google ads. So it's not, I don't think it's Facebook advertising, it's Google advertising. And so let's say Sean was a carpenter, or Sean was an HVAC specialist, or whatever. Could be any kind of renovator, contractor, plumber, electrician. Matt is really good at that. So one of the things I was thinking about doing is introducing you to Matt, if I have your permission to do that, and suggesting that in addition to all the other cool services that Thibault provides to these contractors, he could also supply them with scrip.
Yeah, it'd be great.
And he has a big customer base. So, when I'm starting a business, I tell everybody, and I'm telling you this as well, that your goal is to find at least 3 customers. All right, 3 people who want you to help them with that. So the reason I picked 3 is that you probably can convince one person of just about anything. Maybe 2, but not 3. Once you have 3 customers, you're pretty sure you have a real business. All right, so let's look at Sean the handyman and how that works. And I'm not going to go into as much detail because you've already seen this, but I'll just do a quick summary. So Sean has never owned a home, right? He's never owned a home. And what I suggested to Sean is that what we could do is we could do scrip for Sean to raise money as a down payment for a home. I'm not sure he wants to do that, but he could do that. And let's see if I've got, I'm not going to go through the augmented tendency thing. That's not relevant here. So this could be a form of bootstrap capital. It's just a way of talking about self-capitalization, right? So, Tracey Clark and Bridgehead, she self-capitalized, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
She bootstrapped it. both 30 years ago and then more recently to get that Westboro roastery open. And so what we could do, what you could do is you could help thousands of contractors raise money for whatever, raise money to buy a new van, raise money to buy more tools, raise money to put a down payment on a house, believe it or not. And so if you think about it, this is modeled, by the way, after a real person who is a master carpenter. Like he's an artist, and he's been working for me for 30 years. His name is Sean. That's not his real name, but that's what I'm calling him here. So what if Sean were to create, and maybe you would help him, created, similar to Bridgehead, if he created his own currency, Sean the handyman, due to the bear in trade, $5,000. And what if he sold, say, sold it at a 20% discount? So he sold $5,000 worth of future work by Sean for $4,000. And he sold, he sold 25 of those. He only has to have 20. And, Sean, again, that's not his real name, probably has a customer base of, probably 300, 400 steady, regular customers because he's a master at what he does. And you might say, he could never sell, a $5,000 coupon to somebody. Well, he does about, probably $60,000, $70,000 worth of work for me every year. And if he came to me and said, Bruce, would you help me out? I want to buy a house. Would you buy one of my $5,000 bills for $4,000? I'll do $5,000 worth of work for him. I'm going to do lots more than that. I might buy 2 of them because I know I'm going to give him the money anyway.
Yeah.
And so I think this idea has like an awful lot of, potential applications, not just for the usual thing, which is, you have a nail bar, somebody's doing nails and they issue some scrip, which is fine. But it could have a very, very broad application, I think, and this is one of them. Something else that this could lead to, and I put this in here just because I think down the road, if you got really good at this, I think you could also go to cities and towns across the planet and tell them you're going to create scrip for the city. And you say, wow, who would want to do that? Well, guess what? Calgary already has a Calgary dollar. And the little town of Tamworth, which is like 7,500 people, has a Tamworth dollar. And Salt Spring Island, way out in the west, has a $5 Salt Spring dollar. Then there's the Kawartha Loon, right? So people are already doing that. And I'm helping the city of Ottawa a little bit with their new official plan, which was due out next year, 2021. But we're not going to get it up for 2021. There's no way. COVID-19 is just. Yeah. But I'm going to recommend to the city of Ottawa that they create their own currency. It's going to be called the O-Town dollar. Or that's what I call it anyway.
I like it.
Thank you. And you know who this guy is, right?
Yep.
You're a sports fan. Well, he has 9 kids. He and his beautiful wife, Tiffany, have 9 children. If you count the number of kids in this picture, there's only 8 of them, but they had another baby recently, so now it's 9. And I asked myself, how come, Tiffany and Philip Rivers have so many kids? I have 5. You don't have any yet, but I do have 5, and Philip and Tiffany have 9. And the reason for that, I think, is that he makes $20 million US a year. And so he can afford it. And so if we want more children in Canada, the United States, and other places where we just don't have enough kids, I think one of the big problems is that, these people, young folks, can't afford it. It costs about $14,000 or $15,000 US a year to raise a child. Probably closer to 18 or 19,000 in Canada a year, and that's a lot of money. And if you have 9 of them, you add it up, and that's without private schools or university. It's just giving them clothes and putting them to school and maybe getting them involved in some kind of sport. So if the city of Ottawa, city of San Francisco, Los Angeles, Austin, Boston, Vancouver, Toronto, follow Calgary and Kawartha and other places like that, and they create an O-Town dollar, what would it be used for? Well, it would be used to reward volunteers, would be used for awards, could be used for compensation for things like a tornado disaster. My house got hit by the tornado, by the way, of 2018.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. Could be used for internships, could pay people with O-Town dollars serving on committees, could pay people housing allowances. You could use it for startup capital. Somebody could give Nick, 1,500 O-Town dollars to help him start up his new business. Could be given to projects deemed of net benefit to the city. Could be paid to people who mentor and coach, people like me. Mm-hmm. And you can see here on the screen here, what would it be like if, say, a young woman got $1,000 a month of O-Town dollars for every baby that she has until that baby reaches 18? Would that help? Now, people ask me, and this is a question I'm sure you have in your mind, what's the use of having O-Town dollars? Maybe they just sit in a drawer, you can't use them. I think you could. And sort of the experience in other cities and towns is quite positive. And what I mean by that is, let's say, Nick, you were a plumber, and a young mother calls you up and says, my toilet is blocked. Can you come over and help me out? And, she's getting some support from the city of Ottawa and O-Town dollars. And she says, is it okay if I pay you with O-Town dollars? You turn her down, say, oh, that's just funny money. I'm not taking that stuff. That's crap. And then she calls me up, and I'm a plumber too. And she says, look, I have a problem. Can you come over and fix it? But can I pay you in O-Town dollars? And I say, sure, absolutely. So I go over there, I fix her toilet. I charge her $150. She gives me 150 O-Town dollars. Now I've got 150 O-Town dollars. I go to a grocery store and I say, can I spend, I go to Farm Boy. Can I spend my O-Town dollars here? And they say, oh, that's funny money. We don't accept funny money here. No. And so then I go to, say, Loblaws, and I say, Loblaws, can I use my O-Town dollars here? And they say, oh, yeah, sure, we accept those. And so I go to Loblaws. It won't be very long before Nick, the plumber, and Farm Boy says, Jesus, all our clients are running over to this other plumber over here, Bruce the plumber, or they're going to Loblaws instead of coming to Farm Boy. We're going to accept O-Town dollars.
Yeah.
And then when Farm Boy needs a plumber, right, they're going to call me because I accept O-Town dollars and say, hey, Bruce, we need some help with our plumbing. And that might be a $10,000 job at Farm Boy if they're having a serious problem with their plumbing. And if I get paid 10,000 O-Town dollars, I'm okay because I know I can spend it at other vendors. So over time, the Calgary dollar, the Kawartha loon, et cetera, has really helped these communities.
Now, what would the circulation look like? So I go to the local grocery store, I spend the O-Town dollars. Now, the grocery store has the dollars in their cashier. Now, would they give change in O-Town dollars, or would they just keep that and then go to the city and get it exchanged for real money?
No, that's the whole point. O-Town dollars circulate as O-Town dollars. Okay. Calgary dollars circulate as Calgary dollars. And in fact, if you allowed people to come back to the city of Ottawa and exchange it for Canadian dollars, you're going to bankrupt the city of Ottawa. Okay? Right. Yep. So we're not going to do that. So it's just like it was in exchange for trade, right? Remember that?
Yep.
The O-Town dollar, the Calgary dollar, the Kawartha loon, all of these are the same. You cannot go to the issuer and ask them to exchange it for a Canadian dollar because it's in circulation. The idea behind this is it's in circulation in the local community. It boosts the local community. But if you look at what I designed for the city of Ottawa, how it would get into circulation, it's not like, the mayor of Ottawa. Do you know who the mayor of Ottawa is?
Yes, Watson.
Jim Watson. So it's not like Jim Watson's in the basement, with a machine and he's cranking out 1 billion O-Town dollars, right?
Yeah.
Because that's called inflationary, right? you know, the printing press is being cranked up by Jim Watson, you know, thinking, ha, you know, free money for me. I get a nicer car for the mayor. That's not the point. The point is that O-Town dollars only enter circulation because they're earned, right? So you can't go to you know, the printing press in the basement of the of City Hall and, you know, crank it up and print out $1 million O-Town dollars for Nick and run away and say, I got them. That's called theft. But let's say, Nick, when you were in high school, did you have to do some volunteer hours to graduate?
I did, yeah.
How many hours was it?
I believe it was 40 hours.
Yeah, I think it was something like that. So what my suggestion is that every high school student who does his or her 40 hours gets paid $30 an hour, but $30 O-Town dollars, right? So you would get 1,200 O-Town dollars, and that'd be cool. You could go to Dairy Queen and get something to eat. You know, you're a kid. You know, you can go to McDonald's and get you know, McDonald's. You could be sure that we would embarrass these people into accepting O-Town dollars eventually, right? Because I mean, if Wendy's starts accepting O-Town dollars and McDonald's doesn't, where are all the kids going to go with their 1,200 O-Town dollars? They're going to go to Wendy's. You know, really, the difference between Wendy's and McDonald's is that big a difference? Probably not. So, you know, and then all of a sudden we'll say, hey, well, wait a second. It's, with all due respect, it's a lot like Black Lives Matter. Now that it's such a huge movement, people are jumping on board, right? And saying, oh yeah, we were always in support. Yeah, right. Sure. It's a, you know, and I understand, you know, a little bit of the misery. You know, I just have a little bit of an understanding of it, you know, and I to some extent, you know, when you see a bunch of these corporations saying, oh yeah, we're in support now, to me, that takes away from their credibility, you know? So if Wendy said right away, we're in for the O-Town dollar, and Dairy Queen, yes, and McDonald's said, oh, to hell with you, you know, and then 5 years from now or 2 years from now, they jump on board, that looks bad on Mickey D's. Yeah. Yeah, right.
And it also looks like they don't want to support the community, right?
Exactly. And this is a very important initiative. You know, I'm all over this. I've been looking for a disciple to do it. But again, I want to reiterate what we started with, which is that if you're not passionate about this, if you don't have a good gut feeling about it, if your head isn't into it, just deep six it and do something else. But if you're passionate about it, you know, I think you can really do something. Now, you asked me, how do you make money doing this? How do you make money? Okay, so let me just walk you through it, all right? And by the way, I don't have all the details worked out, because I'm going to tell you something that you probably already know. Every business, my coaching practice, the Ottawa Senators, everything I've ever been involved with. I started Ottawa Business Journal. It was called Ottawa Business News back in the day, but I started that. Every business, Nick, that you start is an experiment until proven otherwise. And we're going to talk today, and we'll probably talk a few more times about this business, but I guarantee you 6 months or a year after you start, whatever we've done, whatever thoughts we've had between the two of us will change. Do you understand that?
Yep.
Because as soon as you come into contact with the marketplace, the market will teach you things that you don't know now, and I don't know either. And you have to, part of being a great entrepreneur, which is what I want you to be, is reacting to the marketplace, because the market is always right, even when it's wrong. Like you might say, well, that doesn't make any sense. But the market is telling you this is the way the market feels about your offering. And so the reason I selected the course title Pivot is that it will be necessary for you to pivot a lot. And in ways that you and I don't know. So I don't want you to take this, what we're doing together right now, as the gospel truth. It's not like the 10 Commandments, you know. You and I wouldn't take the 10 Commandments and say, thou shalt not murder, and then cross out the word not.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is not the 10 Commandments by Bruce or by Nick. It's an idea. It's a concept. I think it's probably going to work. But I do know for a fact that when you talk to your first 3 clients, they're going to ask you questions that I can't anticipate, and you can't either, and your model is going to change. All right? So how do you make money doing this? So I wrote a few notes to myself. And this is all recorded, so you'll have it, so you can go back over it if you need to, if you really want to listen to me for another hour and a half. By the way, how are you finding the pivot course?
It's great.
We've had some pretty good guests, eh?
Oh, for sure.
Fantastic young people, and not all young. Okay, so let's say you were working on my coaching practice, and I charge, typically $1,500 a month to help people with some coaching, and I have a lower rate for not-for-profits and for students, $850 a month. So let's say we were going to create some script for Prof Brews. There's two ways to do that, at least in my mind. One is to create an e-certificate, right? I mean, you see these all the time. You can buy a gift certificate at Chapters or Indigo, and you can email it to your daughter in Vancouver and say, hey, happy birthday, honey, here's $100, go spend it at Chapters. So you could certainly create an electronic version of the script, and that's fine. But I think you would want to do both. I think you would want to have an electronic version, but I think you'd want to have a physical version of it. And let's go back to Sean the Handyman. Let's say Sean the Handyman has, just to make a number up, has a $1,000 script that you have created. So what you would charge Sean is you would charge him a setup fee, because you have to set up his account. You have to work with him on the design, because these things have to be, it has to look like money. It can't look like the US dollar, the Canadian dollar. That's called counterfeiting. We don't want to do that. But it has to look, it has to be well designed. And it has to reflect, you saw the Reynolds Brothers, it kind of reflected, the two men sawing. Right? So there's a lot in design. It's kind of like designing a stamp, right? You don't just sort of, put a stick figure on a stamp. Canada Post and the U.S. Postal Service, when they create a new stamp, it's a piece of art. So that's very important. So you would charge Sean, listen, Sean, I'm going to charge you $350 to set up your account. I'm just making the numbers up. I have no idea if these are the right numbers, but they're kind of what I would think. And I have an artist who will talk to you about the work you do, and he or she will create you can go on Fiverr, if you know Fiverr.
Yep.
You can go on Fiverr, and there's lots of really great artists there who will do amazing work for you. And there's other services like that. And, they'll charge you, a little bit of money. And so you would say, we're going to get a design. You're going to approve the design. And on every cost, so there's a setup fee for the account, then there's a artist cost. On every cost, you're going to add at least 15%, if not more. The minimum would be 15%, because you're responsible for this whole process, right?
Yep.
So let's say the art cost $300. You might charge Sean, I don't know, $360 for that, or something like that. So you're making a little bit of money because you're stupidizing it, right?
Right.
And then there would be printing cost, right? And so let's say he prints up 500 of these, or 100 of them. They have to be properly printed. They have to be on really good paper. They have to feel like money, Yeah. And so and again, you make a margin on that. And then I had another idea for you that I think would differentiate your business from everybody else's, right? Because there are other people who have thought of this. This is not completely unique, although there's some aspects of it that are probably unique. One of the things you could also offer, which would be much better, in my opinion, than what Groupon does, is you could offer Bridgehead or Sean the Handyman that you will organize a snail mail campaign for them in areas of interest to them. So let's say Sean the Handyman lives in Canada, and you say, look, Sean, why don't we print up 500 or 5,000 $50 Sean the Handyman coupons, and we will snail mail them through Canada Post to the entire neighborhood where you live. There's 5,000 houses there. I think Canada Post for bulk mail like that charges 30 cents. And again, you're organizing it. So imagine, I mean, people, I don't know about you, but you probably get a lot of email, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. as a real estate investment and business coach, I don't want to tell you how many emails I get a day. It's ridiculous. It's actually too many. So Groupon. I mean, if you get another Groupon email, delete, right, as fast as you can delete these. I was about to use a nasty word, but these crappy emails, you just delete them as fast as you can, and you can unsubscribe. But you could probably spend your whole life unsubscribing.
100%.
100%. So one of the cool things you could do. Do you know what mail drops are?
Is that when you, I guess, target certain areas and you put like a piece of mail with maybe, like you said, $50 and
exactly. And you don't even, these days, you don't even need to buy envelopes. You just have the $50 and I go to I don't have door-to-door mail here where I live. I go to one of those, what do they call it? I get a box, somewhere, and it's not far away. And I open it up, I get the bill from Enbridge, the bill from Bell Canada, you never really see anything else other than bills. And all of a sudden I get this really beautiful, and I would make them a little bit bigger, I wouldn't make them like a $5 bill. I'd make them a little bit bigger than that, but really good paper. I just got $50 on it from Sean the handyman. And he's in our neighborhood, and if we need any renovation, so it says whatever. So imagine what a great service that would be. And if you go into Canada Post Corporation, and you don't actually have to go in anymore, it's all done online. You can do these campaigns, and Ottawa will have, I don't know how many routes they have. For all I know, they have 100 routes, and Sean the handyman can pick. I want these 5 routes. All right. And then you have another contractor, maybe he's a roofer, and he says, look, my real focus is Barbecue Haven. You know where Barbecue Haven is?
No.
Bar Haven.
Ah, nice.
Yeah, it's got a few nicknames: Bar Haven, Barbecue Haven, Far Haven, Barf Haven, you name it. Sorry to all the people in Bar Haven, but that's what they talk about behind your back, like I'm doing. So anyway, so maybe a roofer says, like the homes in Bar Haven now were built 20, 25 years ago. Many of the roofs are failing. So can you create a nice, maybe for a roofer, new roof can be $20,000. Can you create a $250 piece of scrip for me? And these guys don't really have the time to do this, but at some point you could systematize this, right? You would. Initially, this would be extremely low tech.
Yep.
Right? I mean, extremely low tech. Something else you asked me about, which is counterfeiting. I'm going to share my screen again. So one of the ways, can you see this random number generator here?
Yep.
So I just went online before we got going here, and you can change this. So I'm going to generate random numbers somewhere between 1 and 100,000. So you click here. There's a random number. Here's another random number. Another one. Another one. All right. So one of the things you could do is you would number each of your scripts. When you print them, there would be a little space at the bottom or somewhere on it where you would number them. Let's say it was Sean the handyman or Mike the roofer, and you printed 5,000 of them. They would actually be 1 of 5,000, 2 of 5,000, 3 of 5,000. But they would also have, each of them would have, and hopefully the printers can do this for you, so you don't have to actually sit there and write it out. They would actually also on each one print a random number. And then you have a master list. In this case, it would just simply be, where a spreadsheet where each of the script, number 49 out of 5,000 would have a random number associated with it, right? So that the vendor can check that every time one of these is redeemed, right, that it's not a counterfeit. I mean, that's one way to deal with that. And there's always people who will find ways around that. In the case of Disney and Canadian Tire, they don't bother with it. They just make the actual piece of art so difficult to duplicate that, and it's on good quality paper, and it's hard to But if you look at your $5 bill, hang on a second. Do you have a $5 bill there?
I might.
I think each of the bills does have an individual serial number on it.
Yeah, it does.
So you might, let's say you're printing, then let's change it. Let's just change this as we go. Let's say you were printing 5,000 instead of 100,000. So you could generate an individual serial number for each bill if you wanted to. It could be random. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
But if you use a random number generate, it is possible it will generate the same numbers 2 or 3 times. So I'm not 100% sure on how to do that, but I think if you think about currency, they do have individual serial numbers. You'll figure it out. All right. So you have a setup fee. So you're going to make money as a setup fee. The other thing I think you're going to charge, on the artwork, on the printing, on the snail mail, you're making a lift on each one of those. But I also think at some point you might want to charge something that's called seigniorage. I'll spell that for you. I think I got it right. SEINORAGE. And that's like a numismatic concept. It just means it related to money. And what seigniorage is, that, for example, the Bank of Canada, when they print money, or the Mint, the Canadian Mint, I guess, does the printing, that they make a little bit of money on every dollar that they print. You with me on that?
Yep.
I mean, I don't have to tell you that if you use your credit card to pay for some coaching, I use Square to process my credit card, so I have to pay them about 3%. So Square has a seigniorage charge of around 3%, might be a little bit more than that. And you might do that too. So you get a percentage of every dollar that you're generating for these people. That would be very useful for you because that's real money. Right? Yeah. I don't know what the right number is. Is it 1%? Is it 3%? Is it 3.5%? Is it 0.5%? I don't really know. And there's no way to know until you actually sitting in front of a customer and you're asking her or him, hey, I want a 3% seigniorage charge on there. And they say, well, that's too much. Then you say, well, how about 2% for me?
Yeah.
Who knew? So that's another possibility. And there is another model that I thought of on the revenue side, which is, what if your website, I don't know what you're going to call this website, but what if your website allowed people to buy coupons for Sean the Handyman, Mike the Roofer, for Farm Boy, for any number of different vendors from your website, and you actually were selling them? Then you are more like Groupon, and Groupon's economics are unreal. So let's say you're selling a $50 coupon or scrip for Sean, the handyman, and you're letting people buy that for $40. So you're giving them, again, a 20% discount. Groupon would then turn around and say to Sean, you get $20 for that, and Groupon keeps the other $20. So we're not talking 15%, we're talking 50%. So if your website becomes a very trafficked place, people will go to your website looking for deals, right? Listen, I can get 20% off on Farm Boy. I can get 20% off on my roof. Jesus, I don't know if you could go, maybe for the roof it might be 5%, right? Because that's a lot of money. But so the percentages will change, but people will come. So instead of pushing all the time through email and pushing through snail mail, with the mass mail outs, the bulk mailing, you can also pull. And if you pull people to the website and you're selling from the site itself, then the numbers get really big for you real fast.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I think there's a really good revenue model here. And by the way, if you actually got this thing going next year, if we get our official plan out next year, and they decide to go for an O-Town dollar, I'm going to suggest that they do a request for proposal, and hopefully you'll be ready to say, hey, I got some experience doing this. Let me try it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, that'd be cool because, the city of Ottawa, for all the stuff that I talked about, for volunteer hours, for disaster relief, to support moms. I mean, that would, you know, I could see the city of Ottawa issuing $100 million of O-Town dollars a year.
Yep.
You know, my house, when it got hit by the tornado, had $120,000 in damage. Would have been great if the city said, hey, by the way, everybody in your community, we had 71 houses either destroyed or significantly damaged. Here's 20,000 O-Town dollars to help you out.
That'd be,
Right?
yeah, that'd be perfect.
Yeah, it would have been great. And, you know, if you multiply, you know, 71 homes times 20,000 O-Town dollars, you know, that's $1.4 million in disaster relief, and doesn't really cost the city anything. And it isn't inflationary either, because it has a tie to the physical world. You understand that?
Yep.
It's not Jim Watson, like I said, turning a crank and printing out $1 billion of these dollars. That would be very inflationary. But if you have to earn the dollars, then the work is done. And if you ever have any kids, and you know, and the city of Ottawa is sending you and your wife, girlfriend, your partner, 1,000 O-Town dollars a month to help you, that's $12,000. That's earned, right? That's not just money you can go and spend at the Lickbow, right?
Yep.
You've got real cost to bring up your kid, probably, like I said earlier, 15 or 20,000 bucks. So are you starting to sort of see the model a little bit?
Yeah, no, it's definitely interesting for sure.
Right. So what are some of the questions that you have on it before, I mean, Addie's going to join us on. In fact, she's joining us now.
Hi.
Addie, are you there?
Yeah.
Turn on your camera, kid.
There we go.
Hi.
How are you guys?
We're good. How's the weather?
Oh, it's horrible. It's been pouring rain all night.
Oh, well, it's, you know, I have a client from Vancouver visiting me here in Ottawa, and yesterday it was about 32 or 33 degrees. He said, we never get this heat in Vancouver.
Wow, that's amazing. We haven't had anything like that. We've had rain almost every day this month.
Wow. Yeah, well, he was melting. So Addie, meet Nick.
Hi. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
So Addie, tell Nick a little bit about some of the ideas that you've been talking to me about.
So I've had quite a few ideas. It's been hard for me to narrow down just one and focus on one thing.
By the way, you both are in Pivot. You know that, eh?
Oh, I didn't know that.
You're both colleagues and fellow students.
Oh, cool.
Oh, Addie, sorry to interrupt you. Last time, I promised. We are recording this, just so you know.
Okay, no problem. My most recent idea was CBD infused coffee beans with my own labeling. So with my own labels. So originally I came up with these labels of hikes to Vancouver Island. On the back there's maps to the hikes, information about them, and on the picture there's a nice picture of wherever it is, just like scenic pictures. So I wanted to do that with CBD infused coffee beans, but because of my age, it's really complicated, and I don't think it's possible at this time until I'm 19. That's what I'm thinking of right now.
That's very interesting.
So, Addie, you read, I think, the story about, or we talked about it, about Tracey Clark starting Bridgehead, right?
I'm not sure I remember that one. Was that in one of the Zoom meetings?
I don't know. I can't remember what day it is unless my wife tells me. So Tracey Clark is a young woman who started Bridgehead Coffee Shop. I thought I sent that to you, but maybe I didn't. I don't know.
Oh, you did send that to me in an email. No, I remember that.
Okay. And so what happened was she bought a Bridgehead Fair Trade coffee out of bankruptcy about 30 years ago. I helped her with that. And what happened was Bridgehead Fair Trade coffee wasn't very well managed. It was kind of whatever. And so there was an estate, you know, that a bankruptcy trustee took over the assets of Bridgehead, and they were asking $650,000 for Bridgehead. And I asked Tracey how much money she had saved, and she said 35,000 bucks. So I offered the bankruptcy trustee on Tracey's behalf $35,000 for something they were asking $650,000, and he told me to get lost. Only it wasn't that polite. You know, he told me to whatever. And so Tracey was a little disappointed. I said, let's wait. So we waited about 3 or 4 months until it was like January. You know, in January, everybody in Canada seems to want to commit suicide. You know, it's cold, it's dark. And so I called the guy back and I said, have you sold it yet? And coffee beans have a life, right? You can't just keep them forever. I mean, I'm not an expert, but I assume that after a year or two, they're probably no good.
Even after a month, they're not great.
Well, there you go. So, you know, what do I know? So I said to him, you know, Tracey would like to buy it. And he said, well, she's got to do better. She's got to do better. And I said, well, she's saved $35,000. And eventually we got him to agree. And so Tracey bought the very first Bridgehead coffee shop for $35,000, including the inventory, which probably wasn't worth anything by that point. And she built it into quite the empire. She has 15 or more Bridgehead coffee shops all around Ottawa and a few in Toronto too, I think. And when she wanted to build her flagship store, she needed $3.5 million of her own money. And, you know, you could check in your wallet or your purse after this and see if you've got $3.5 million in there, Addie. Because if you do, you don't need to, we can discontinue this right now. But assuming that you don't have $3.5 million in your wallet, and even though Tracey was successful, she didn't either. What she did was she started a campaign called Plant a Bean, and she sold the scrip that I've been talking about to you and to Nick about. She sold $3.5 million worth of this scrip in denominations of 250, 500, and $1,000.
Wow.
And you know, and she gave everybody who bought it like a 20% discount. So it meant that you could buy, say, $500 worth of Bridgehead coffee and good and treats. You only paid $400 for that. And if
Was
you
that like a gift card?
a big pardon?
Is it like a gift card, the script?
It's very similar to a gift card, but it's more like a currency. You know, it's more like it looks more like a dollar. I think I sent you some of these pictures, but if I didn't,
I remember you said something about Disney dollars. It's
yeah. I showed it to Nick just before you jumped on here, but yeah, I've got them here. Just give me a second. I'm sure I just, yeah, they look more like this. They look more like a currency, right? Can you
okay,
see
yeah.
that? And it is a little bit of a different concept than sort of like a gift card. I don't know about you, but gift cards don't really turn my crank.
No.
You know, they just don't. They just don't. But pretty much every kid I know has a Disney dollar somewhere, or you and your mom, Julie, probably have a few Canadian Tire dollars in your.
We definitely have those.
Yeah, you definitely have some, right? So,
Yeah.
so what I was thinking is that you know, I know that you like the CBD infused stuff, but you're too young for that. Addie isn't quite yet 18, Nick. She'll be 18 soon, but she's not there yet. A month and a half, I think you said.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what do you think of the name Atticus, Nick?
It's great.
Isn't that a cool name?
Yeah.
So anyway, so this morning, what I did was I sent Addie this. I don't know if you saw your email yet.
I did.
Yeah. So I sent Addie this. This is me a long time ago. I actually had a Volkswagen Bug, and I was at the University of California at Santa Cruz. And this is a long time ago, guys. It's 40 years ago. You know, my girlfriend, she was from California, from Los Angeles. She took me to a beautiful little coffee shop that was open 24/7. And, you know, the owner would be in the back making, you know, grinding coffee, making coffee, creating all kinds of delicious treats. And we, as customers, we would serve ourselves a donut, we'd serve ourselves coffee, even total up our bill and put our change on the counter and leave. You know, and every once in a while the owner would show up and go, hey, how's it going? And he'd take the money and put it in his till, and the till wasn't even locked. It was a different era, Addie.
Yeah.
It was an era of peace and love. I'm not saying you would do that, but one of the things I was thinking that you might do is you might establish a coffee shop, and it doesn't have to be CBD infused coffee. It could just be great coffee, right?
Mm-hmm.
Great treats. And Addie sent me this earlier, Nick. She wants to call her company West Coast Coffee. And because her last name is Bird, she wants to use the tagline, "It's for the birds."
I like it.
I thought it was really cute, Atticus. And it has a number of meanings. You know, I'm Prof. Bruce. My tagline, Nick, is making impossible possible. Right? That's my tagline. And her tagline, "It's for the birds," it can be interpreted a number of ways. It's good for the birds. It's for the birds. You know, we're for birds, so everybody's for birds, right? So you can interpret it in a positive way. You can interpret it in a negative way, as in, this coffee is so horrible, it's for the birds, right? But young people love irony, right, Addie?
Definitely.
They love irony. And if you said, "Our coffee, it's for the birds," you know, people will laugh, not just 68-year-olds, but, you know, 18-year-olds. And when you do get a license to have CBD infused beans, Addie told me this morning or yesterday that it can either wake you up like most coffee, or it can put you to sleep. That's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
So what I suggested to Atticus early this morning, Nick, and you got to remember, she's out in Vancouver, so it's 12:09 here, but it's 9:09 there. And she was responding to me this morning. It had to be 5 or 6 in the morning. So you're an early riser, I guess, Addie.
I am. We had a cat bring a bunny in late last night, so I'm just running on a couple hours of sleep at the moment.
Are you okay to continue?
Oh, totally.
Okay,
Sure.
all right. So one of the things I said to Addie this morning, very early, you know, I start work at around 5, so I wouldn't expect Atticus to respond at 5 since it's 2 in the morning, but maybe with the bunny in your house, probably sliced in half by your cat, you might have been up at 2. So I went to visit, do you guys know Bon Jovi?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and Addie, I sent you his song, right?
I didn't see it. I've listened to his music for sure. I didn't see it.
Yeah, but this morning when I sent this, there's an attachment, and it's a sound file. So I asked you when you're reading this to play the song. It's I can't remember which one I sent you, but I sent one of his songs. You know, it was "Keep the Faith."
Keep the Faith. Okay.
Yeah. So imagine "Keep the Faith" playing while I'm talking. So anyway. So Bon Jovi runs a thing called the Soul Kitchen in New Jersey. He's originally from New Jersey. And what I was saying to Addie, imagine if she had a coffee house called the West Coast Coffee House, and you could go there and you could get free coffee. But free coffee and free food, but you have to work for it. That's what Bon Jovi does with the Soul Kitchen. So you could go to the Soul Kitchen, and if you don't have any money, you can go in there and say, "Look, I don't have any money, but I would like, you know, to have something to eat," and they will feed you. But you have to, after that, you have to work for the food. Do you understand that? And I thought, can you imagine your coffee house with that DV? So Nick, a very important part of every new business is to add some kind of differential value. Differentiated value. You've heard me talk about that in the course. It's really, really important. So imagine if you did a riff on what Bon Jovi does, which is you could come here, we'll give you a free cup of coffee, no problem, but you've got to volunteer to do something. In his case, they actually have a farm where they grow a lot of their produce, and so people who go to the restaurant, some of them, you know, need real help. They have to put in, you know, some hours at the farm, you know, which most people are happy to do. So it's free, but you know, you understand, Eddie, it's free, but you know, you have to pay for it one way or the other.
Totally, yeah.
So when I went to visit John and his place, you know, my wife and I, we paid for a meal. We're not going to go work on his farm. So I would think that 97 or 96% of your clients are just going to come in and buy coffee and treats, just like any other shop. But there would be a few people who would come in for free coffee and would be happy to do volunteer work, whether washing some dishes or cleaning up or doing something.
Mm-hmm. I like that, because around here, I think a differentiator is really, really important, because we have coffee shops on every corner. You can't walk 2 blocks in town without a coffee shop. I've worked at 4 of the coffee shops in town before.
Yeah, I know you're a barista, right?
Yeah. Right now I work at for one lady, and she owns 4 coffee shops within 20 kilometers of each other. They're all very close. It's all condensed.
So I really like the CBD idea. As you know, I lived in California in the late 60s, and I might have smoked a little bit of weed back then. I'm not admitting anything. This is being recorded, but it's now legal. But back then, the hills around Santa Cruz, there were all kinds of farmers up there who brought garbage bags full of wet weed. And I guess I could say it now, it's so long ago, it doesn't matter. But my girlfriend and I, we had a house that we had rented, and we had, I guess, 3 or 4 ovens in there, four gas ovens. And these mountain men would bring their huge, like enormous green garbage bags full of wet weed, and they compress it and they dry it in our ovens.
Wow.
Yeah, I guess I can admit that now. Anyway, my girlfriend and I, we lived in the attic. And so the THC from, as you're drying this stuff would go up so we were always kind of really stoned, living in the attic. I guess I shouldn't really say anymore, but I'm glad that it's legal now. And I do believe that CBD can be a force for positive outcomes.
Mm-hmm. It's really interesting looking at the laws around it, because CBD drop shipping in Canada, I haven't found any laws prohibiting it.
Wow.
There aren't any laws around it. It's a gray area. I was talking to Jill about it. I've been talking back and forth with her, Jill Costa, who's also in the group. And she looked too, she says, yeah, there's a lot of gray areas in the CBD
But
field.
what I was thinking is that if you you could be a launch customer for Nick. He could help you and you could help him, because he's interested in this scrip idea. And we don't have all the details worked out, Eddie. Nick is going to think about it afterwards, and I'm sure he's going to improve my ideas and suggestions. But imagine if you printed up scrip, in $100 and $250 denominations. That would be 50, 100, and 250 would probably be the right numbers for you. And it wasn't about CBD, because you're too young to actually get involved in that. But if it was just for WestCoast Coffee, and it said, we commit to providing free coffee, not food, because food might be a little bit more problematic, but free coffee to anyone who needs it. In return, we're going to ask them to do some volunteer work. And it might not just be volunteer work for you. Maybe they do some volunteer work for the city or the town or the county, or they go to a church group and volunteer there, or they go to Alcoholics Anonymous and volunteer there. So it doesn't just have to be, volunteering for you. And Bon Jovi's restaurant, the Soul Kitchen, you have to volunteer there, but I wouldn't necessarily limit that, just so long as they if you give them free coffee and they're going to go do an hour's worth of volunteer work at maybe an old folks home, helping somebody, that would be okay too. I think that would be enough of a differentiator. You could probably sell $25,000 worth of that, and maybe a bit more. And I think Nick could help you do that, and then you could really look around and maybe start a coffee house.
I'm really interested in that, because I've wanted to have a coffee house, have a coffee shop for a long time. But my fear is I'd be buying myself a job, because everybody I know around here, if they don't work in their coffee shops, and I know my boss works more than 40 hours a week she works probably 80, 90 hours a week still. And she's been owning it. She's owned it for 20 years and it doesn't run itself yet.
Yeah, well, that what we're trying to describe here with WestCoast Coffee is something that's more like Bridgehead and less like that.
Yeah.
So if you're just going to run one location, you know, out of a 450, 500 square foot hole in the wall, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. But you are definitely buying yourself a job.
Yeah, I like the Bridgehead idea way more of that because it's sufficient and you can like having more locations is ideal.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how many Bridgehead has. I know that's more than 15. And, you know, Tracey was a young woman like you are when I helped her initially with it. But, you know, now she's in her 50s, I guess. And, you know, it's made her a very wealthy woman. But it's hard work. There's no question about it. You know, if you you know, if you think you can work 30 hours a week building a business, you know, here I am, I'm 68. You know, I still work 3,000 hours a year.
No, I'm prepared. I know it's going to be a lot of hours and a lot of hard work.
A lot of hours. But the idea would be to really do something special. Something else I wanted to show you, Addie. Addie, I'm only going to keep you for another 12 minutes because I want to talk to Nick after that. Is that okay?
Totally, no problem.
At 12:30, we're booting you out.
Sounds good.
All right.
Now, one idea, Addie, that I was just thinking of is, do you know the most westerly coffee shop in Canada?
No.
Could you become that? That would be kind of like a differentiator in and of itself, and also maybe like even a tourist attraction.
That's a really good idea. I think that'd be possible. Totally.
So WestCoast Coffee, and the flagship store is the most westerly coffee shop in Canada.
Oh, I really like that. Most west. What do you mean most westerly? By location or?
By location, yeah.
Location. Okay.
By physical location.
Most westerly.
Yeah,
So
you know, the coffee shop at the end of the world.
Yeah.
That's definitely. I don't think that's been done. That's good.
So let me show you something else, another model that I've been working on, Addie. This is one of my daughters. I've got 5 kids, 3 girls and 2 boys. This is my youngest kid. This is Jessica. Say hi.
Sorry.
So Jess has been training as a nutritionist. And she came to me and she said, Dad, there are more nutritionists than a porcupine has quills. So I said, Jess, let me think about it. So I came up with a model for her, Addie. And this is a map of the United States, which shows that there are an incredible number of cities and towns and places in the United States that are called food deserts. That means you can't actually buy any food. There are convenience stores there that sell pop and sell chips and candy, but they don't actually sell any food. And in the United States, they sell chips and pop and candy, and then they also sell guns, ammunition, and liquor. I mean, these places are, you know, I mean, there's really nothing happening there. And so I showed that to Jessica. Basically, it's junk food, and again, in the States, plus guns, ammo, and whatever. So there is a real estate component to this model of yours, Atticus. And I wanted to show it to you. If West Coast Coffee is a success, and I suspect it will be, especially if you have a little bit of the Bon Jovi magic, you know, I mean, he's pretty popular. Then there is a real estate play for you as you get a bit more experience and you get older. And that is, there are a zillion, in my opinion, a bazillion C-stores that are failing across Canada and the United States. Nick, when was the last time you were in a convenience store?
I honestly can't remember.
How about you, Atticus?
It's been a while. A long time, probably since I was
so here, this is a property in Ottawa that I want Jessica to buy. And I said, Jess, here's a convenience store that has failed. Now you can see their sign has come down. And when most people look at that, they think, oh my God, that's a problem. I've got a commercial vacancy that's going to be hard to fill. But in addition to that, I can't remember how many apartments there are in this building. There's probably about 8 apartments here. So think about this, Addie. If West Coast Coffee is a success, and I'm sure it will be, I hope it will be, is that you, at the right time, could buy any number of these buildings, because they're all across Canada, the United States, where these convenience stores are failing. You could then populate these buildings with West Coast coffee houses, right? And now you have both a real estate play and a personal business for life. And that's kind of what I teach, right?
Mhm.
You know, I teach people, if you want to take care of yourself and your family for the next 3 generations, the best way to do that, in my opinion, is to have a personal business for life, West Coast Coffee. And by the way, Nick, I want you to think about a name for this script business and a tagline. You know, we've got West Coast Coffee, it's for the birds. Prof. Bruce, making impossible possible. Nick's business with a tagline. I don't know what that is yet, but something clever, and see what you come up with. So here's the model for Jessica, okay? So Addie, as you know, I'm an engineer, not an artist. So this is the best I can do in drawing. So here's Jessica with her red hair, and she got a little yellow dress on. And this is so going back here, this is the failed convenience store, okay? So here's the plan, all right? So we're looking at a plan view, okay? We're looking from like a bird's eye view, okay?
Okay.
So you walk in the store here, and instead of having chips and pop and candy, you have real foods. Over here, you have a commercial kitchen, and you have a lunch counter here. So people can come in the store, they can sit there, they can have nice coffee, nice teas, good quality meals. And it's a double loaded kitchen. So you can come inside and sit at the counter, but also you can sit on the outside and come and order. So if you look at this, we would replace this window with sliders, and we would have a deck all around here. You with me on that, Addie?
Yep. I'm
This would
following.
be a deck. So somebody could come along, and you don't even have to go in the store. You can knock on the window, the slider opens. I'd like, you know, coffee and a pea soup and a nice sandwich, and my friend would like something else, and you could sit on the patio there. Now, in addition to that, she would have a large screen TV here, good quality speakers. She'd have Spotify and other things available here. And she'd actually have a community space in here, not very big, but enough to do a yoga class or to do, you know, sit down and teach class. And this is the key thing for Jessica, because she's a nutritionist, and that is she has her own little office here. So let's say Addie and Nick, a little bit later when you guys have children, if you do have kids, you know, and maybe, you know, your son or your daughter, when she or he is 8 or 9 or 10, is a little overweight, you know, and you're worried about her. For that matter, you might be worried about yourself as you get older. So Jessica would actually be in the store, and a nutritionist would be there, so she could curate the stuff that's in the store. Are you following me?
Yeah.
So instead of her having to go and work for, say, a hospital or a school board, which she didn't want to do, she could run her own business, her own nutrition counseling business. She could run her own store. She could have a real estate component to that. And you could do something very similar. So another differentiator for West Coast Coffee is, if you had a place like this, is you would have like a little community area where people could come and meet, teach nutrition, teach, I don't know, whatever, spiritual healing. You know, I could come there and give a lecture about running your own business for life. You could have a yoga class in there. So it would be more than just a coffee house.
Totally.
What were some of the other things? The other thing that's really important, and I don't think Bridgehead does it, and they should, and I don't think Starbucks does it, and in my opinion, they should. The other thing that I would add to this, if I were you, Eddie, is I would add pre-prepared foods for takeout.
Yeah, for sure. That's something everywhere around here has.
Yeah, I have no doubt about that. But if you think about it, you know, one of my friends runs a very high-end restaurant in Montreal, which is fabulous. I've been there. It's incredible. I'm going to stop sharing now so we can see each other a little bit better. And I was doing some work with them, and I might even be able to find them online, see if I can find them, because you get a kick out of it. And Let me see if I can find it. Oh yeah, here it is. So it's called Le Naked Lunch. They're French. And they make the most wonderful, wonderful pre-prepared foods, all right? I'm not going to show you all the images. Maybe I could find some more images. Let's see if they've got some images here. Yeah, they have unbelievable stuff. Like, I don't know if you can see it okay, but they have smoked meat de canard. They have incredible stuff. Like, the recipes are endless. And the reason I show you that is that they were doing about $2.5 or $3 million a year in the restaurant. And out of that, the owners, Addie, were making about $100,000. And then they had this counter where they had all these wonderful, wonderful concoctions that were pre-prepared foods that you could take out, where they were doing maybe, you know, $500,000 or $600,000 in sales, and pocketing about $150,000 or $200,000. So all the work that goes into a live restaurant was enormous, and they made a little bit of money. And then they had this little tiny afterthought of pre-prepared foods, which was by far the most profitable part of their business. So you can imagine. Sorry, go ahead.
So they made more money off the smaller idea because it cost them less to do? Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. I mean, think about a restaurant. You have to have the chef and the sous chef, and then you have to have, you know, sloppers, and you have to have people who clear the tables, whatever they're called. What do they call it? They bust the tables,
Yeah.
And then you have to have servers, and then you have to have all the other ingredients. You know, it's a very typical business. Talk about creating a job. You know, and it's probably just as bad as that lady that you were working for. Whereas the pre-prepared foods, if you see about it, a lot of it was, you know, in cans, and they could just create it almost on an industrial basis, very little labor involved, and tremendous ROI. All right. So that, I think, would, you know, I don't know if you found this helpful, Addie, but that's kind of the model for West Coast Coffee. It should be, I think you could be better than Bon Jovi's restaurant. I think you could be better than Bridgehead and better than Starbucks. And that's a good start.
I think that's great. I love the ideas, and I like that business model you're talking about right there, especially with pre-made food. And you can still, like, making it super healthy, making it easy for people. I think people would love that.
So after, we're going to boot you out now, but before we do, could you do me a favor, and yourself, and after this is over, can you write down some notes for yourself of what we've discussed, so you can internalize the idea?
Yeah, I'll write down some notes, and I'll email you business model, including this later.
I think you should. And, you know, I'm trying to teach everybody in this course how to build a business model. And the one that we've described here today together is a very powerful model. And if you were to implement it, and you would make changes to it, no doubt, but if you were to implement it, by the time you're 15 years older, you know, you'll be 33 or 34, you'll be a very successful, still young businesswoman. Do you remember Jamie Montero's story of Purdy Paws? Do you remember Purdy Paws? I think she was the first pivot lecturer, guest lecturer, and you know, she has a 21-year-old daughter, and you know, Jamie's only 37, so you can do the numbers, right? And you know, imagine being a teenage mom, you know, and fully responsible for another human being, and with no help from anybody. Like, nobody gave Jamie a damn thing. You saw that lecture too, did you not, Nick?
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so think about what she has achieved, and she is just now, she is now poised. You know, she's gone from, like, being a completely destitute young mom to here, and she's poised to do this now, because some of the stuff that she's working on is fantastic. And Nick, you should remind me to introduce you to Jamie, because Jamie should be doing this with you as well. I just thought of that now. So Addie, I need you to make notes to yourself about what you've learned today, if you can remember it all. If you can't, this is a recording that I'm making really for Nick. but so I'm going to download it to my computer, upload it to YouTube unlisted. But if you forget some of the stuff, you're going to have to ask Nick for help, because I am too busy to go do this a second time. Okay.
No problem.
All right. But I'm all over this model. But again, if you decide that this isn't for you, you dump it and do something else. But if you do this, you will have, I think, a really, really good experience.
Okay. Thank you
All right?
very much.
And give my regards to your mom.
I will.
All right.
Absolutely. We'll see you tomorrow. Thank you.
And if you don't mind,
Yeah.
see you tomorrow. If you don't mind, Addie, can you share your notes with Nick as well as me?
Yep, I'll email you both.
Okay. And can I ask you one more thing? Is it okay if I show, that little thing that I did today with you? Is it okay if I show that to Pivoteers tomorrow?
Which
This note that I sent you, I just think people would really enjoy.
the Bon Jovi?
Yeah, this one here. If I have your permission, I'm going to talk about peace and love. I'm going to talk about it's for the birds. I love your tagline. I'm going to talk about Bon Jovi, but only if I have your permission. I'm not going to describe the entire business model because that's yours. But I thought this part of it would be really fun to share.
No, go for it. I have no problem with that. That sounds awesome.
All right. See you tomorrow.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah.
No.
So, yeah. So I'll send this YouTube video to you after we finish. And if Addie forgets stuff, it's entirely up to you. You might share a portion of the video with her. Not the stuff that we talked about before she joined us, because that's proprietary to you.
Yeah.
All right. So one of the things that Jamie Montero is doing is she's going to build Purdy Park. If you remember that, Purdy Paws Park.
Yep.
And one of the ways to do that, and she's got a huge client base, is I just thought of it now. I guess I'm just probably doing too many things. Is that she wants to generate, I'm sure she'll want to generate anywhere from $200,000 to $500,000 worth of scrip to help her establish her first Purdy Paws Park. What a great client for you.
Yeah.
Because she has a huge, my wife and I, we're clients of hers. I mean, she's a client of mine, but I'm a client of hers. We've got animals, and every time they get into trouble, they get sprayed by a skunk or they get porcupine quills or whatever. Jamie comes over with her van, or one of her people comes over with the van, and they fix them up, right?
Nice.
I don't know how many thousands of clients she has in her database. She runs 2 mobile pet spas. You remember that too?
Yep.
And she has two physical locations. So I'm sure she has 5,000 clients, maybe more.
Wow.
Yeah. So I think that, but I'm not going to do these introductions to Matt Tebow and to Jamie. I was okay introducing you to Atticus because she's a young person and she's just thinking things through. She's a fellow student of yours. But I wouldn't want to go to Matt and to Jamie and say, look, Nick's interested in doing this with you guys and helping you. And you decide a week from now that this isn't your cup of tea.
Right, of course.
Right. So once you have made up your mind, yeah, this is something I'd like to do, and I'm working on it. And you have to think it through, because the model that I've presented today is a good one, but it's still half-baked.
Yeah. You
got to fully bake it as best you can. And like I said when we started this, no matter how careful you are about baking it, as soon as you talk to Jamie or Matt, it'll change again. But you have to make at least a commitment that you're going to do it.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. So the other part of your menu, your agenda, which was a great agenda, was a real estate side of things. And I'd like to go and visit with you your principal residence. So do you want to give me the address again?
Yep, it's 1851 Featherston Drive.
Yeah, Featherston. Yeah, I've been there already. Okay, so I've got it here, and it's a corner, right? As I recall.
Yep.
That's awesome. So what can you do to make this, sort of, I'm going to share my screen. You've talked to me about it already. So what can you do to make this place, an asset as opposed to a liability?
Well, I think looking at the setup, we could do the micro gardening.
The micro what?
Gardening or the
Micro suite?
no, yes, we could do that in the basement, but we'd have to do obviously some renovations and stuff like that. And the only other issue is the only way that you could create a separate entrance, so to speak, would be through the garage. There's a door.
Yeah, I remember you telling me about that.
Yeah. So.
So what kind of animation were you talking about?
It was I believe it was the micro gardening. So where you could create different small gardens and produce, plants, vegetables.
Yeah, that's small beer. A micro suite can produce significant income for you because you have a fairly decent sized basement, as I recall. How big is the basement?
I'm not sure exactly the square footage, but for sure it's definitely good enough to be a 1-bedroom.
Yeah.
It's got a full bathroom down there and everything. So
have you seen this slide before?
I have, yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I never know how to get this to play. Oh, hell. Oh, well. So you've seen this before. This is a 1-bedroom, it's really a studio apartment of 300 square feet. And do you remember this slide as well, what my friend Ken and Natalie McKenzie could do with their micro suite?
No, I don't think I've seen this before.
Yeah, I'm going to see if I can get it to play. Oh, shoot. I probably have a million slides here. That's not going to work. Hang on a second. All right. So I'm big on this animation thing, right?
Yeah.
It's always been F, Control F. Holy smokes. I wonder why it's not working. Oh well. So I like micro suites. This is Ken and Natalie McKenzie's property. And when I went to, they're older than you and they want to generate a little bit more income for their pending retirement. So they said, can we do something with our house? I thought, I don't know. So I went to visit them and you can see there's a plate glass window here, just a wall of glass here, and there's a porch here. And when I went inside, this is a picture I took inside. So you can see that door leads out to that porch.
Yep.
So this is they actually have 2 living rooms. And I said, Ken and Natalie, what do you need 2 living rooms for? I said, we hardly ever use this one. Here's a picture of the room going the other way. And so I said, this is a perfect micro suite, you guys. With 8 feet of drywall here, and you put a micro kitchen in and a bathroom here, you have your own beautiful little micro suite. And what's great about it is it has its own door to the outside already. And here's the next picture I took. So imagine if this were your micro suite as a young man, maybe as a student. You come here, this is your own little porch area, a little sitting area. You go in here and you have a studio apartment. If you look at the numbers on that, the cost for building these micro suites is typically around 40 grand. You can see that here.
Yep. And
they'll generate net operating income. That means after you pay your property taxes and your insurance and everything else, it'll generate about $9,000 or $10,000 a year of net operating income. So if you get about $9,400 a year net after you pay everything, all your bills, you're making about a 23.5% cap rate, return on investment. Now, that's a lot better than the 1.5% from the bank.
Yeah.
So if you left your $40,000 in the bank, you would get, say, 1.5%, you would get $600 a year from that. Okay. If you built a micro suite the way that Ken and Natalie did, and you get $993 or $9,400 a year net, you're making 23.5%. So what's better, making $600 a year or making $9,400 a year?
I'll take the 94.
There we go. Bingo. So you know who Robert Kiyosaki is, right?
Yep.
He's Mr. Rich Dad, Poor Dad, a very famous guy. He says that your principal residence is not an asset, it's a liability. And his definition of a liability is anything that takes money out of your jeans when you lose your job. And millions of Canadians have lost their jobs recently, and tens of millions of Americans. It's awful. And due to COVID-19, obviously. And so you can't imagine how many people I'm coaching now. My coaching practice has become stupidly big. And that's why I work 3,000 hours. And you can't imagine how many people are taking, $40,000 and putting micro suites in. So let me ask you again, if you could put a micro suite in your basement, how would you do that?
Well, I think the only challenge there, I mean, we could do the construction in the basement. The only challenge would be the private entrance.
So could you do what I did at 1268 Henry Farm Drive? Let's see, let's go back to Google Maps. Here's what I did at 1268 Henry Farm Drive. It's one of my properties. Oh, here it is. So just come over here a little bit. So, oh, look at that, it's open. This is awesome. I gotta take this picture. Thank you, Google. So over here on the side, we have a 1-bedroom apartment, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And you can sort of see there's the pathway that leads to the 1-bedroom apartment. And then we're not supposed to, but we put in a second driveway. And the bylaw officer said, you can't have that a second driveway here. I said, it's not a driveway, sir. It's called hardscaping. You're allowed to landscape, hardscape, up to 50% of your front yard. I said, I just put that in for hardscaping because I don't like cutting grass. That was true, by the way, but it's also a driveway. But anyway, I got away with it somehow. But this is what I was talking about. You see this garage door here?
Yep.
This is an insulated garage door with a man door in it. Can you see that?
Okay, yeah.
And it's a special order from Lachine, Quebec. It's sealed, and it's a fantastic product. And it still works as a garage door. It still opens and closes, but it has a man door in it. And I wonder if I have it here somewhere. Let's see if I've got it here. Ah, I do. There we go. So let me show you what we did with it, okay? I'll see if I can get this to work. Damn it, I don't know what's happening. Aha. So this is my wife, Dawn. You can see my daughters take after her, not me. Thank God. So what Dawn did was, so now this is the garage door here. Mm-hmm. And we turned my old garage into an Airbnb.
Oh, wow.
We did. So you can see here's the garage door. It is insulated, R12 insulation, which is pretty good. Here's the man door, but you can still see it will go all the way up if you want to, right? It's still mm-hmm. operate. We put in an epoxy resin floor. Can you see that here?
Yep.
It's got a natural gas heater. It's 14,000 BTU. If you and your girlfriend want to have a sauna, this is the place to do it. We put in it's not a very big kitchen, but it's a full kitchen. My wife is amazing. And there you go, a little seating area here. You can see the kitchen a little bit better. Full kitchen, you can do anything you want there. We don't put in dining rooms because nobody seems to have time anymore for sit-down meals. So we just put in a kind of a lunch counter here. Can you see that?
Yep.
And then when you go around the corner, so this is a 2-room micro suite. So this is 2 rooms as opposed to 1. When you go around the corner, here is the bedroom. It's got a stacked washer and dryer. It's got a full tech package. You know I like tech packages, right?
Yep.
All of my tenants have internet, Wi-Fi, Spotify, Netflix, Crave TV, HBO, Showtime. we get, we have a really, really, really good internet, and we make sure that we have enough repeaters in there. There are no dead spots. Wi-Fi will work in every square foot of this place. Okay, and that's a profit center. We charge for that, right? It's not free, but it's a fantastic experience. And thank God we did that. We have over 352 people on the tech package now.
Wow.
And thank God we did it over the last 6 years, because if we hadn't, when the COVID-19 struck and everybody went home, you had to have really, really solid internet.
Yeah.
And we have a company in Ottawa called AdSmart Tech. I think I may not have told you about that, but they do they put all the technology in for us, and they manage it for us as well. So when somebody calls up from one of our buildings at Saturday night at 11 o'clock at night, drunk as a skunk, and says, I can't connect to Netflix, those calls don't go to me.
Good.
Right? But it is a profit center for us. So good tech. You can sort of see we have a little kind of wet bar here. Then we have a nice bathroom here. And that's enough of that. So we put that in. It did cost us about 50 grand, because we had to do the epoxy resin floor. We had to put in the bathroom. We had to put in the kitchen, the tech package, the insulated garage door, etc. But and we were making about $2,500 a month net from Airbnb. It was a really good business for us. So maybe it wasn't quite that much, around $2,200. So 2,200 times 12, that's net, right? After paying your property taxes, insurance, and all the other stuff. So we were making about $25,000 or $26,000 on a $50,000 investment. That's pretty good. If you kept that $50,000 in the bank, you'd make $750 in interest, or you put it into the one bedroom micro suite, which was on Airbnb, we could make about $25,000. So a really good return. However, when COVID-19 hit, we had to pivot away from Airbnb, right? I mean, there was nobody traveling.
Yeah.
So we now have it rented out on a long-term basis to a very nice young man. I think his name is Mike, and he pays, I think, $1,300 or $1,400 a month. So obviously we don't make as much money. I think it's around $1,400 times 12. So we're making about $15,000 a year instead of $25,000. So we're making about $10,000 a year less. But then again, you don't have as much work either.
Yeah.
So Airbnb is a lot of work. And I've said this many times, if my wife runs off with a younger man, I would take all of our properties off of Airbnb in about 5 minutes, because it's a lot of work. And she does all of the work. She's a mom and a grandmother, and she babies our guests. She loves taking care of them. But for me, that would be, to get 10 texts a day, tell me again, when does the garbage go out? Can I get an extra cleaning done? Because, I had a party last night and it's a mess, all of that. I mean, she handles that, but, if I had to handle it, well, I would go crazy. So for somebody like you might not want to be in the short-term rental market. You might want to be in the long-term rental market, even though you make less money. But if you make $15,000 on a $50,000 investment, which is probably where we're at now, that's still about a 25 or 30% return. It's still a hell of a lot better than, like, maybe your mutual funds are doing great, but mine all suck. And by the way, I have an NHL pension from the back in the day when we were allowed, even as owners, allowed to contribute. And it's cronies of Gary Bettman's who run that, I think out of like Bermuda. And, if I had taken the same amount of money I put in the NHL pension plan back in the day and stuffed it in my mattress, I think it'd be doing about the same. It's just terrible. I think we went down 27% in 2008, 2009, and then recently again just plunged. So it's just like, literally, if you put in $1 million in 1993, it's probably worth $1 million today. At least it's not zero, but it certainly has gone nowhere. If you just put the cash in a shoebox, you'd be the same. So if you invested in a micro suite or two at say 20 or 30% return, imagine where your $1 million would be today.
Yeah.
I mean, if you take $1 million you know, just to show you the power of real estate, which you already know. Let's just fool around and do that. All right. So let's say we take $40,000 of your money. Let's make it 50. Let's say you put in a micro suite in your house for 50 grand, and let's say you make 20% on it. Okay, let's not go crazy, and let's say you do that for 20 years. Okay, what do you think 50,000 with a 20% increase return on investment for 20 years? What will that be worth in 20 years? Well, you can figure it out this way.
250K, I think.
Let's see. Do you see what I'm doing? Can you see the little formula as I'm going?
Yep.
1.9 million.
Wow.
Okay. Now, if we take that same $50,000 and we put it in the bank, so let's do this. I'm going to send you this spreadsheet afterwards, and we get 1.5% on that for 20 years. So we keep it in the bank. We say, oh, micro suites, it's risky. Real estate's risky. All right. So we just keep our money in the bank. Let's see what it works out to. We have 50,000 times 1 plus 1.5% to the power of 20. So it turns into 67,000. Skill testing question. Which one is better?
I'll take option 1.
Thank you. So you understand where I'm coming on this thing, right? So there's no question about it. I'm just going to get rid of that. I don't need that. Where we're going. So I want to go, oh yeah, here's where I wanted to go. So I want to go back over here to 1851. Let me ask you again, what can you do with this building in terms of putting a micro suite in the basement?
See, what I was thinking and what I was going to ask you was, say I take the amount of money that I would invest in creating a micro suite in the basement and put that towards purchasing a place that's better suited for multiple micro suites in one home.
Yep.
Would that be a better play than?
It could be. I don't really know. It depends on how adventurous you are, right? I do think that real estate, this is a fantastic time to start a business, and it's a fantastic time to invest in real estate. I have to tell you, Nick, that if we were to ask 100,000 other people, there wouldn't be very many people who would agree with me. Most everybody, your banker, your father, your brother, your nephew, everybody will tell you, oh, no, Nick, now's the time to shelter in place. Now's the time to run into your basement and pull the covers over your head. No. That is untrue. That is just not the case. Excuse me. The opportunities, I just helped a client of mine buy a hotel in Florida, and it's completely empty. And everybody said, are you crazy? You're buying a hotel in Florida now? It hasn't got a single, well, it has like, it's 52 rooms. It's got like 4 or 5 rented. Mostly to healthcare workers who can't go home because they're sick. And so it's got, few rooms rented. And he bought it for $100,000 US. That's like $2,000 a room. You can't even furnish it for that, let alone build a sucker. And the people who sold it, they're very elderly. They're well into their 80s, mom and pop. And it's near Orlando. I said, I felt bad for them. It's their life's work. They said, look, Bruce, we made all the money we're ever going to make out of this. We are losing $15,000 US a month on this place. Every month we own it because, you've got to pay all the stuff that you got to pay, property taxes and everything else. You got to keep the utilities on. And, we're losing $15,000 a month. We got a few staff that we have to pay. We made all our money. He's well over 80. His wife is a bit younger, probably late 70s. And they even offered my client a seller take-back mortgage, if you know what that is.
Yep. And
I said, no. My client is a rich dude. I said, he was on the call with me. I said, no, he's paying $100,000. He can afford it. And he was, no, you're paying $100,000. These people need a little bit of help. And they were just offloading it. What we didn't tell them, because I don't represent them, I'm coaching this guy, and we have a realtor who represents them, not me, is that their 52 suites, I think 40 of their suites are perfectly set up for micro suites. They already have a kitchen and they already have a sitting area. They already have a work area, an entertainment area, of course, a bed. And it's very close to some very major attractions in Orlando, and he's going to pivot it to medium-term rentals and long-term rentals. He has no interest in running it as a hotel. So instead of having to rent 52 rooms a night, 52 times 365, which is, instead of having to do almost 19,000 individual sales to keep the building full, if he does 52 rooms on 2-year leases, he has to do, instead of doing almost 19,000 transactions a year, he has to do 26.
So he's basically turned that hotel into an apartment building.
Correct. Yeah. And now 40 of the rooms will be in the long-term rental market. And the others that are not suited towards micro suites, he's got about 12 of them, he is going to turn into medium-term rentals. He's not going to do the overnight Airbnb thing. He's not going to run it as a hotel. So that means if somebody comes to, maybe they come to Disney World to work for a month or two, fix something, fix a ride or whatever, they need a medium-term rental, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, I think up to 180 days, they can rent from him. And the other thing that it has associated with it is a house. And, it's part of the hotel, but it's its own structure, if you will. And it's going to be his winter place for him and his family. He's got 4 kids and they're young. He's older than you, but not much older. He's maybe 36. And he's got a beautiful wife and 4 lovely children. And that's where, he's going to, the house is, it's been lived in by 80-year-olds, so it needs a lot of work. But, so that building within 2 or 3 years, in my opinion, will be worth at least $100,000 a door. I'm quite confident of it, and so is he. Now, we don't have to disclose our model to the sellers. Again, I don't represent them, and the buyer's model is the buyer's model. It's its own information and proprietary information. You don't have to disclose that, right? So he will turn a $100,000 investment within 3 years into something that certainly, in my opinion, will be worth over $5 million US. Now, he will invest, probably $1.5 million over the next couple of years, renovating it and improving it. So it's not like it's gone from 100,000 to 5 million, but he'll be, probably his cost will be 1.6 million, 1.7, 1.8 million, and it'll be worth well over 5 million within 3 years. That's how you make yourself rich.
Yep.
And wealthy. And you get a place that is uniquely your own, that is an asset, not a liability, right? Even though it's your house in the South, it's an asset, because even though it's going to sit empty for probably 6 months a year or even more, because he's not going to rent that out. That's his place, and why should he? But that place will make him buckets of money, and he'll have a beautiful house for free. Okay.
Yep.
So those are some of the business models that are out there, and one of the things that you could do is certainly, in my opinion, look for something like, the perfect model for you if you're going to buy something would be something like 1268 Henry Farm Drive. You got to remember, when I bought it, it looked like this. You can't really see it very well, but it was kind of, it was owned by a very elderly lady, nice lady, but she probably was 90. I don't think she had done anything to it in at least 30 years. So we fix it up, but we bought that for $405,000, and we put about $100,000 into it. We've now got 3 units there. It's our most profitable building, by the way, and it's probably worth $800,000 today. So it's a good building, produces great cash flow, and we're never going to sell it. My kids can own it, my grandkids can own it. So you would either put a micro suite in your basement, and if that's not practical, you go and buy a Henry Farm Drive. Now, let's just boot up one more thing before we break, okay?
Now, just a quick question. So say I go ahead and, I purchase a home with, say, 3 micro suites in them. Do you recommend contracting out the service side of things?
What services are you referring to?
you know, if anything goes wrong, or like sort of like a management.
You're talking about property management.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So this is your personal balance sheet, and I revised it for you. You know that, right?
Yeah, thank you for
I
that.
sent it back to you. So your current home is 369. It might actually be higher than that, but let's say it's 369.
As being conservative, yeah.
That's fine, but it might be higher than that. And you have $117,000 mortgage. So what I would do is if you do an 80% loan to value mortgage on it, or you could do a HELOC, either one. Okay. So you could put in your jeans, is that your phone?
Nope.
Okay. So Nick, are you watching this? So if you went to an 80% loan to value mortgage, you can take out of your existing house about $170,000 or $180,000 tax free. You know that, right?
I did not know that. No.
It's because that's not income. It's just a loan, right?
Yep.
If I loan you $1,000, is that income for you?
No.
No, because you have to pay it back.
Yeah.
If the bank loans you an extra $178,000, is that income for Nick?
No.
No, because you have to pay back. Banks have a nasty habit of wanting to be repaid.
Yeah.
Okay. So when I looked at this, you have the capacity, in my opinion, to certainly raise $150,000 to $180,000 like that. And the reason I'm recommending a mortgage as opposed to a HELOC, you know what a HELOC is, right?
I do not actually.
A HELOC is a home equity line of credit. Okay?
Yep.
So you could go to Home Trust, or you could go to your bank and say, I want a $100,000 HELOC, and they'll register it against your property. And it's like a line of credit registered against your property. It's called a HELOC, home equity line of credit. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
But what I would recommend is you do a mortgage instead of that. Two reasons. People who have lines of credit never seem to pay them off, right? There's always another iPad that you wanted.
Yep.
Right? There's always the trip to Cuba that you wanted. There's always a new car you wanted. And say you had a $150,000 HELOC, and I check back with you in 5 years. How much have you paid off? Well, it's down to 148. Maybe you paid off $2,000. It's ridiculous. So that's one reason. The other reason is that if it's a HELOC, the banks can cancel that at any time, right? Which means that, let's say you put a $150,000 home equity line of credit on, life is good. You go out and you buy a 1268 Henry Farm Drive. You're going to have a great adventure with it, and you're going to become a big real estate mogul, right? And the bank gets scared because of COVID-19. They can just cancel your HELOC. It's just a line of credit. They can say, hey, listen, your credit score went from, do you know what your credit rating is?
Yeah, I do. It was, I did it a couple of days ago. It was in the 700s, 779, I think.
779. Okay. Do you use Credit Karma?
I do, yeah.
That's very good. Okay. So anything over 710 is excellent. So 779, you'll get really good rates. So if it's a mortgage, though, they can't just cancel that. They can't pull the rug out from under you, but they could with a HELOC. They can just cancel it, and then you go, well, wait a second. I'm going to take $100,000 out of that HELOC because I just bought 1268 Henry Farm Drive. It's closing in July. What the hell? And they say, well, so sorry, tough luck. What are you going to do? Sue the Royal Bank? Good luck, right? I mean, they just don't care. So even though a HELOC in some ways is better, don't do it. Do a mortgage. Do you have a mortgage broker you work with?
So I use RBC.
Yeah, I got it right, eh?
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm going to suggest a couple of things. I'm going to introduce you to a mortgage broker because, with all due respect, The banks work for themselves, not for you. A mortgage broker will work for you for free, because the mortgage broker will get paid by the bank. And with one application, Nick, a mortgage broker, if he knows what he's doing, can get 8 or 10 submissions and probably get 3 or 4 offers.
Oh.
Right? So and they get paid by the bank, not you. So it's free to you, but they're fantastic. So I'm going to introduce you, if it's okay, to a guy by the name of Sean McCormick.
Yeah, for sure. That'd be fantastic.
All right, and I'll do that after this. And I'd like to introduce you to 3 realtors that work for me, Simon, Nick, and Rick. And these are guys I've trained. They've all gone through this very exhaustive training program of mine, and they know exactly how to buy places like Henry Farm Drive, how to animate them, how to finance. I've trained them. And again, you don't have to pay them. They're buyer reps, so they would represent you and your girlfriend. What's her name?
Lucy.
Say again?
Lucy.
Lucy, oh, beautiful. What's her last name?
Pinto.
Okay. So they would represent you and Lucy. They don't represent the sellers. They represent you and Lucy, but they get paid by the sellers. So they're free to you. And if you don't like them, you can always get another realtor. But these guys have been trained by me for investment real estate. They know where to buy, how to buy, when to buy, what kinds of terms and conditions work. Oh, they're really well trained. Nick and Simon are both in their 30s, so closer to your age. And Rick's in his 50s. So I'll introduce you to them.
Awesome.
The other thing that I would ask you to do, because I'm your coach and your teacher, is that when you put in an offer, if you do, during the conditional period, I'd like you to reconnect with me so that I can look at the property that you're buying before you waive your conditions. You understand about waiving conditions and stuff?
Yep. Yep.
So let's say you and Nick and Simon and Rick and Lucy find a wonderful place. You buy it and you're going to animate it, blah, blah, blah. That's great. But before you waive your conditions, you and I will do another one of these calls. And you'll say, look, I'm looking at, A, B, C, D, this property. These are my ideas for it. Obviously, I'm going to have my own ideas of it. Mm-hmm. And we'll talk about animation. We'll talk about financing. And we'll talk about, how to make Nick a big real estate mogul.
That sounds great.
All right. So I hope this was helpful to you.
Very helpful. Yes. Thank you for this.
And when you make up your mind about whether you want to do this script thing, reach back to me. You have to remind me, because I do have a lot of clients, so I might forget. Yep. Remind me to introduce you to Matt Tebow and Jamie Montero, because they're potential launch clients for you. And Matt Tebow will have, I'm sure, 40 or 50 people like Sean the handyman that you can help. So you might end up with 3 launch clients, and then before you know it, you might have another 20, which would be good. Yep. And I will, after this is over, I will also introduce you to Sean McCormick. One thing about Sean is he's also in his 50s. He's very, very quiet, Nick, like you. He's quiet. He's a good listener, and he's quiet, but he really knows his stuff. So when you talk to him, you have to, I'm a big talker, so I have to force myself to shut up and listen, because he's really, really smart. Yeah. But he's so polite and he's so quiet that if you don't stop talking, he won't say anything.
Okay.
All right. So you have to give him the opportunity to say, look, these are some of my ideas. And then you have to stop and make sure that you give him an opportunity, because he really knows his stuff. He's the best mortgage broker I've ever run into. And he runs his own fund as well. It's called Castle Bay Alliance. So if you need a little extra money here and there, it's available. It's called Castle Bay Alliance. I helped him start that fund. And with Nick and Rick and Simon, they're realtors. They're gung-ho. They'll help you.
That's amazing. This is all fantastic and an awesome start. Just had a quick question regarding the script. Now, ideally, I would want to create a website to have those 2 different flow opportunities. Do you think there'd be a possibility to sell advertising on the website
You're way ahead of me. I should have mentioned this. I'm glad you mentioned that. So one of the ideas I had for scrip, which is different, and I did have it in my notes, but I forgot it, and you just banged it up. You just did a home run here, brother. So this might be Sean the handyman, $500 worth of script or $50 worth of script, whatever it is. On the back could be Home Depot.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
It could be Rona, could be Lowe's, could be a plumbing store. So sponsorship, I missed that. It's in my notes and I just forgot to mention it to you, Nick. Sponsorship, because you're you know that before the meltdown, Sens were in the top 5, 6, 7, and 8 in revenue categories.
Yeah.
And I taught Cyril Leader and Randy Sexton and Jimmy Steele and Mark Bonneau and all those guys sponsorship back in the 90s. And so scrip, in my opinion, if you think about it, if this was a Disney dollar, imagine all the Disney people could be on the other side of that, right? I mean, Disney's a hugely powerful company. How about Canadian Tire? They could have Craftsman Tools and a million others here, right? So Sean the handyman will have people in his network that will want to advertise with him.
His suppliers, yeah.
Oh my God, you got it exactly right. So that's a home run for you and an F for me because I forgot to mention it.
No, it's all good. And
all
then
right.
the other, sorry, the second
one more question, then I have to go because I've got.
Yeah, no, 100%. I could definitely track analytics and traffic on the website. Now, can you sell that back to the organization? Say who's buying, when they're buying, with the demographic?
Oh yeah, but only when you get really,
right.
to some scale, right? But data analytics, very, very important, and certainly you will, if this is the kind of success that I think. Imagine if you were running scrip for 300 towns around the world. Jesus, yeah. How much money would be going through your website? 300 towns each issuing $10 million a year in their own currency. I don't know, maybe it's 100 million, but 10 million a year times 300 is like 3 trillion or something like that. And this is a big business potentially. And the good thing is you're young enough. If you were sick, I have a good idea every week, but I'm 68. I'm not doing it. I'm perfectly capable of coaching people, but I can't do one more thing. So you have on your side, you have obviously some experience. I'm just learning a little bit more about how relevant that could be. Like you mentioned sponsorship, but you have that tremendous advantage, and that is you're 30. You remind me a lot of Cyril Leader at the same age, and that's a good thing.
Glad to hear it. Yeah, I know Cyril pretty well, so it's
he's an amazing.
Very strong compliment, so thank you.
No, I don't know you as well as Cyril because I've known Cyril since he was in his 20s. But I really have a lot of respect for it. The other thing is that if you ever want to reach back for some more coaching, you're welcome to do it. But I do charge for that. I like I said, I would do it for free, except that what they say about owning a hockey team, right? The second best business day of your life is the day you win an NHL expansion franchise, and the happiest business day of your life is when you sell it. Money in NHL hockey only seems to go one way, right? So unfortunately. So anyway, but if you do need some more coaching, I'd be happy to help, but I do charge something for it.
Bruce, I'd be happy to pay. So.
Well, anytime. I'm really excited both on the real estate side, and I'm really excited on the personal business for life. Nick, you have a real tiger by the tail on both sides, and go out and get $150,000 of cash. It's tax-free. Just put it in your bank account, and try and keep 50,000 of it just sitting there, just to look at it.
Yep.
Just in case something goes wrong, because we don't know. COVID-19 is here now, and Canada seems to be getting on top of it, but I don't think the U.S. is.
There's a second wave coming, I suspect, and I think the market's going to dip even more.
Yeah, so it's a great time to start a business, great time to buy real estate, but I would be more comfortable if you had at least 25 or 40 or $50,000 just sitting in a bank account that you don't spend.
Right. Now, is that money then taken from that mortgage?
Yeah. Yeah,
okay.
you raise according to these calculations, you could probably get $170,000 out of your house right now.
Yeah.
But put 40 or 50,000 of it in another bank that you have no dealings with, not at the Royal Bank.
Yep.
You know, maybe the TD Bank if you have no other dealings, because banks do steal money from your savings account. If you get into a dispute with the Royal Bank, they'll just take any money that's there. They'll fucking steal your money. Oh, excuse my language. So gosh, they'll steal your money and it's gone. They say, well, okay, sue us. So you put it in another bank where you have no dealings and it's safe. And then you've got maybe $120,000 left over to go and do a 1268 Henry Farm Drive.
I like it.
See you soon.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Bruce. Appreciate it.
It was really fun.